I remember sitting in my room late one night, the kind of quiet that feels less like a lack of sound and more like a presence of silence. The streetlights outside cast long, pale shadows across the floor. I was just staring at the wall, but my mind was doing that thing it does sometimes. It had floated out past the ceiling, past the atmosphere, past all the stars I could see, and then it asked a question. Not a loud, urgent question, just a very, very quiet one. A question like, why? And I didn't mean, why did I get this job, or why did that relationship end? I meant, why this? Why a universe at all? Why life? Why me? And for the first time, maybe, I didn't get an answer. I wasn't expecting a voice from the sky or a sudden, profound revelation, but I was expecting something, a feeling, a flicker of warmth, an echo of a purpose that had always been there. Instead, there was just silence. It wasn't hostile, it wasn't even cold, it was just an immense, indifferent silence. And in that quiet, I felt this strange, unsettling feeling. It wasn't the fear of a monster under the bed. It was the much deeper fear of there being no one to call for help. It was the feeling that all the stories we tell ourselves about a grand plan, about a cosmic order, about our inherent importance, might just be stories, and that we're the only ones telling them. This is often the first brush with what people call nihilism. Not as a philosophy you read in a book, but as a heavy, personal feeling. It's not the idea that things are bad. It's the creeping suspicion that they just aren't anything. That our struggles and our joys, our triumphs and our failures are all happening on a stage that's completely empty. And the audience is a vacant, starless sky. And you're left with this lingering thought. If there's no inherent meaning, if there's no grand purpose wired into the fabric of reality, then what is all this for? That feeling, that quiet emptiness, it doesn't stay locked in the late night hours. It has a way of seeping into your day-to-day life. It can show up at the most ordinary times. I remember one morning, standing in line at the grocery store. I was holding a carton of eggs. The person in front of me was arguing with the cashier about a coupon. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Everything was perfectly, mind-numbingly normal. And then, for just a second, I had this strange flash of clarity. I saw the eggs, the carton, the person arguing, the checkout lane, not as part of a story, but just things. Just atoms and molecules bumping into each other in a particular configuration. The argument? It wasn't a clash of wills. It was just sound waves. The eggs? Not a symbol of breakfast or nutrition, just protein and fat. It's like the color suddenly drained out of the world. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but in a subtle, deeply personal one. The things that normally gave the day its texture, the small goals, the minor frustrations, the tiny hopes, all of it felt thin. Like I was just going through the motions, following a script I hadn't written, didn't even know the point of. That's the difference between the idea of nihilism and the experience of it. The idea is that there's no ultimate meaning, but the experience is what happens when that idea stops being a thought and starts becoming a lens you see everything through. It can make a conversation with a friend feel like just two bags of meat making noises at each other. It can make a project you were once excited about feel like busy work. Maybe you've felt this too. That moment when you're looking at your own life, and it feels like you're watching a movie with the sound turned down. You can see the characters moving, you can see the plot unfolding, but the emotional core is missing. And the question isn't, what should I do anymore? It's, why bother? Because if nothing ultimately matters, then why should I care about this carton of eggs, this coupon, or even this life I'm trying so hard to build. When that feeling takes hold, it doesn't just hit in one place. It's like pulling a single thread from a sweater and watching the whole thing start to unravel. We don't just lose a sense of ultimate purpose. We can lose everything we thought was solid. That's where nihilism branches out into different kinds of personal crises. Not concepts, but felt realities. Maybe the first thing to go is your sense of personal meaning. What some call existential nihilism. It's that sense that your life, your hopes, your dreams don't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's not about being bad. It's about feeling like even the idea of a good life might be a hollow promise. You work hard, you reach the goal, a promotion, a degree, a milestone, and the glow fades in a day, leaving you with this quiet question: was that it? The finish line turns out to be just a line, and there's no prize on the other side. Then there's the collapse of moral clarity, what some call moral nihilism. It doesn't mean becoming evil. It's more subtle than that. It's the moment you're watching the news or having a hard conversation and you suddenly wonder, who says this is right and that is wrong? Without a cosmic judge, without a universal rule book, are we just making it all up as we go? And if so, how can we judge anyone else? It's not an excuse to hurt others. It's just a terrifying loss of something we thought was stable. Our compass. Then there's the dread that's even bigger, cosmic or political nihilism. The kind you feel when you look at the world, at climate change, injustice, the cycles of violence, and you think, what's the point? What good is my small effort when the problems are this big? These aren't academic ideas, they're emotional tremors, and they shake the foundations we thought were solid. They leave us with more than just the sense that nothing matters. They leave us with a deeper, more specific fear that our purpose, our morality, and even our hope for the future might all be illusions. This might sound strange, but over time, I started to wonder, what if this feeling of groundlessness isn't just a curse? What if it's a gift? A strange, difficult, uncomfortable gift, but a gift nonetheless. For most of human history, our meaning was given to us, handed down by culture, by faith, by family. We were born into a story already in motion. You were a farmer's son, a priest, a soldier. You had a role, you had a purpose, but it wasn't yours. It was borrowed. The dread of nihilism, that feeling that the old stories are just stories, is also the feeling of being freed from them. It's the moment the curtain falls, the script is gone, and you're standing alone on the stage. No one telling you what to say. No one telling you what to do. Yes, it's terrifying. The emptiness is real. But for the first time, it's truly empty. It's an empty canvas. Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." But what if there is no pre-written why? What then? The nihilistic feeling tastes that away, but it doesn't leave us with nothing. It leaves us with opportunity, the chance to create our own why, to decide for ourselves what is worthy of our time, our love, our effort. That's the turning point, the moment when you stop seeing the empty stage as a disaster and start seeing it as an invitation. An invitation not to perform, but to create a life built from the ground up, with your own hands, your own heart, your own small, courageous choices. It's a terrifying kind of freedom, but it is freedom. And the question becomes, what meaning am I going to create?
So we have this freedom, this empty canvas. We're told we get to paint whatever we want on it. Sounds beautiful, right? Liberating.
But
If you've ever actually stood in front of a blank canvas, you know it's not always beautiful. It can be paralyzing. I remember one afternoon staring at my computer screen, trying to decide what to work on. My mind wasn't empty, it was chaotic. Should I write? Should I learn to code? Should I clean my apartment, go for a walk? Each option felt equally valid and equally pointless. There was no inner voice saying, "This is right." There was just me, alone with too many choices. And the weight of each one felt immense. Because now, in this groundless world, I was the only one responsible for choosing. This is the heavy side of freedom. When all the old rules are gone, when the inherited meanings have faded, every decision becomes an act of self-creation. And that's a lot. The existentialists had a name for it: the anguish of freedom. It's the moment you realize you're not just responsible for what you do, you're responsible for why you do it, for the standards, the values, the direction. And we long deeply for some guiding principle, some external sign, something that whispers this way. But in this kind of honest nihilism, there is no signpost. The only map you'll ever get is the one you decide to draw yourself, and that's terrifying. Sometimes it feels easier to follow a bad map than to admit you're standing in the wilderness with no map at all. So we stand there, in that strange space between liberation and paralysis, with all of this freedom and no clear path. And the temptation is to fall back into old roles, to pretend the scripts still exist, or to give up entirely. But maybe the more honest question isn't, what should I do? It's this: now that I've been given the terrifying gift of groundlessness, do I have the courage to build something real?
So, where does that leave us? Not with an answer. Because nihilism isn't a puzzle to solve. It's something to live with, to carry honestly, like a weight or a truth. The absence of pre-written meaning doesn't mean we have to live meaningless lives. It just means we have to be the ones to write them. Not with grand declarations, not with cosmic solutions, but with small, deliberate acts. Making a cup of coffee for someone you love. Listening, really listening when someone is hurting. Tending a garden, fixing something that's broken. I think of a moment I once saw. Someone sitting alone at a kitchen table, quietly mending a tear in a shirt. Their focus was total. Their hands were slow, gentle. It wasn't saving the world, but it was care over neglect, creation over decay. That was meaning. Albert Camus, who wrestled with these questions, said the only real philosophical question is suicide. But he found a reason to say no. He imagined Sisyphus, the man condemned to roll a boulder up a hill forever. A pointless task, a meaningless life. But Camus said, we must imagine Sisyphus happy. Because in that act, in that stubborn, defiant effort, Sisyphus created his own dignity, his own meaning. We can't make the universe speak. We can't resurrect the old stories. But we can decide what to build here, now, in the silence. We can build connection, compassion, craftsmanship, love. Not because someone told us to. Not because it earns us a place in some grand design, but because we decided these things matter. And maybe that's all the meaning we ever needed. Not the kind written in the stars, but the kind written slowly in the quiet corners of our lives.